Hi, this is Joey O'Neill from Sound Systems in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We can be reached at 843-602-5883. And I'm going to give you a general overview of the audio mixer that we have recently installed at Liberty Southern Church in Hemingway, South Carolina. The church was very familiar with the PreSonus mixer because they were using a 16-channel in the old sanctuary. The location we're at now is the new, obviously the new sanctuary. So we decided to keep everything close to what the church knew and just install a 32-channel mixer. I'm just going to give you a brief overview and show you how the mixer is set up. This is mainly for training purposes for the church, but we kept everything very simple. We are a keep it simple kind of a company. We don't like to overcomplicate things, obviously. The actual inputs on the mixer, obviously a 32-channel mixer, so we have 32 channels, including from pulpit to, we have a large band on stage, a couple keyboard players, guitar player, bass guitar player, two electric guitar players, an acoustic player. There's a 4-member praise team, plus also there are 4 other singers in the church. So we are utilizing quite a few channels. Pastor's microphone, of course. There are 2 overheads for the drum kit currently. We are taking a feed from an iMac, which supplies the main source of media worship software. We're using an older TIAC CD playback, which is over to our left, you can't see, as the backup, and then we've installed a new Tascam CD player that has a 3.5 input so that we could use any type of iDevice or phone. It also has an iPod dock, and of course it's a standard CD player. I think my CD's playing now, so let me check. And yes, it is. So our playback is in channels 31 and 32, and we're doing that so the church could use split tracks, instruments, and vocals like many churches do. 32 into 4 into 1. I went ahead and assigned the vocals over to subgroups 1 and 2 and labeled those as vocals. We always think it's important to keep the vocals up on top of the instrumentation. So that allows the sound system operator here to increase or decrease the vocal system. Most people are familiar with this mixer, but I'll choose a channel, for example, and tell you what happens. The one thing about the PreSonus, I'm going to use channel 26 because 26 is not being used for anything at this time. I'm going to unmute the channel, and then I'm going to hit the select button. Now, one thing about the PreSonus board is when I choose the select button, most of the controls all take precedence only to channel 26. So for example, if I wanted to change the tone of the playback, I'd have to select 31 or 32 or both if I'd like. But let's just say I go to channel 26 and I hit select. Now I have the capability of turning on the high filters or treble in the old mixers, high mids, and low, which is basically the tone control, and I can adjust the tone accordingly to my taste for that particular channel 26. Also, it allows me to add a compressor if I would like, and add a noise gate if I had a noisy instrument on stage. Also gives me a high pass filter if I have something that's giving me a lot of trouble with rumbling and such. So the main item to remember on a channel selection is, first of all, I have a mute switch. Once it's muted, it obviously disappears. I could solo it if I wanted to listen to it in my headphones, but when I hit the select button, all the controls that take place work only for only that particular channel. So therefore, I've got 32 channels. I've set up subgroup 1 and 2 currently for vocals. I've left 3 and 4 open in case the church would like to put the instruments in 3 and 4. I'll leave that up to them. And then we have a house master feed, which is obviously set at 0 or unity gain. The key to this particular setup is the band on stage. We have supplied 9 different powered monitor mixes to the band. So the band, every band member can have their own independent mix through a powered speaker on stage. I'm not going to show them here, but the cool thing about the powered monitors on stage is that they have obviously an on-off switch. Each powered monitor has its own volume control, line level control, volume, treble, and bass control, gain control, and it also has a little 3.5 input. So someone from the church could come in and without firing up the whole system could sit and rehearse with pre-recorded music there on stage with their powered monitor. So that worked out very well. What we've also done, the monitors run as such. Monitor 2 is our backup vocal mix on stage. Auxiliary or monitor 4 is Christy's keyboard mix. Auxiliary 6 or monitor 6 is Jeannie's keyboard mix. Then we have Barry Dean's mix on 7, Davey's guitar mix on 8, drums are auxiliary 9 or mix 9, and Craig has a mix on auxiliary 10. We left 11 and 12 and 13 open, and auxiliary 14 controls only the subwoofers in the line array speaker system. We do that so that generally subwoofers are used for music playback, maybe a little bit instrumentation, but it lets us keep other things such as lavalier mics, headset mics to a minimum in subwoofers, and we can add them to our taste. So let's talk about how to make the monitors work. If we know what the monitors work for one, then it's going to work for all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my playback here if it's still playing. Okay, I have music playing in channels 31 and 32. And what I'd like to do is use monitor 1. Monitor 1 is different than all the other powered monitor mixes on stage because we have supplied a power amplifier that feeds monitor 1, which are 2 speakers beside the pulpit, left and right. We've done that so that if and when someone comes in to sing special music, wedding, funeral, or just during a normal church service, we could give them monitor mix 1 without messing with any of the band's mix, and they keep independent from each other. So, same as the mute switch on the channel, I currently have mute switches on all the monitor mixes. Each monitor mix has a mute switch, so once the band finishes, we could go through and just hit the mute switches and their noise goes away, which makes it quite a bit quieter when we have prayer service or altar service or anything happening on stage. Now what I'm going to do is show you how to get sound into the individual monitors. I'm going to turn this down. This is my music playback, and I'm going to come over here and unmute monitor mix 1. Now the music you're listening to is the actual soundtrack being played through monitor mix 1 on stage. How do I adjust that, or how do I make that happen? What I do is, I'm going to turn it down a little bit first. The same with the select button on channel 26. I come over here and I push the select button on auxiliary 1. Now that tells me any adjustments I do are being affected only to monitor mix 1. For example, when I hit select and I hit mix, my LED panel across tells me what is going through monitor mix 1. So right now there's a little bit of the podium, there's a little bit of Barry's electric guitar, a little bit of Craig's electric guitar, a little bit of Denise, Marianne, Glenda, a fair amount of Tony, a little bit of Christy, a little bit of Jeannie, a little bit of Barry Dean, and a little bit of Craig going through mix 1. But also my music playback that we're listening to now. So I'm going to overemphasize it and show you how we turn things up and down. Bring it back up. Now keep in mind, I'm only affecting monitor 1 on stage. What I'm doing there is I'm coming over to the channel where my music playback is happening, coming to the level control, and because this is set up in 2 channels, many times this would be split tracks. This would be instruments on this side and vocals on this side, so I could add what vocals I wanted to add and what instruments I'd like to have. So there again, any control exclusively goes to monitor mix number 1. Let's say during the course of the worship service, I'm going to mute that so we're not talking over. Let's say that during the course of a sound check or church, let's just say, for example, that Christy, our keyboard player, would like to hear more of her keyboard. That's pretty common. So let's unmute Christy. We would hit select because we're going to control anything related to Christy's monitor. We'd hit mix. And now that tells me what Christy's hearing. Right now she's hearing a little bit of Denise, a little bit of Marianne, Glenda, Tony, herself, Christy, and Jeannie. So if Christy comes to me and says, Joey, I'd like to hear a little more of my keyboard through my mix, I can hit select, pan, and then I know that Christy's keyboard is in channel 5. I can come up here to channel 5 and increase her keyboard only for her to hear. So that's why we set things up as independent mixes on stage. I think it should work real well. And another factor involved is that the personnel on stage, a guitar player, keyboard player, anybody standing in front of their monitor mix, actually has a volume control right down on the side of their speaker, so they could easily reach down and bring the treble up, bass up, or anything to brighten up the EQ and or bring the level up. So that's the basic setup of this mixer. We didn't get real crazy with a lot of ins and outs. The main out feeds the recording. There's playback coming into it, and we, like I said, we kept everything very simple. There is a wireless dongle on this, and we are tied to the internet, but if I understand right, nobody's using any iPad or any iDevices yet, but they will be able to control their mixes on stage with iDevices with the proper download. Okay, that's a general overview of the mixer. One thing that I believe I forgot, particular microphones need what they call phantom power, 48-volt phantom power. In particular, condenser microphones. There are condenser microphones on the pulpit, which is channel 1. Channel 9, for some reason, has phantom power on it, and I'm not sure why, if that's a condenser mic. Oh, that's right. There's a condenser microphone miking Davy's guitar amplifier, so that requires phantom power, which is the 48-volt switch up there. There are 2 overhead Audio-Technica MB4 microphones over the drum kit on channels 27 and 28. Obviously, they're condenser microphones, so they require 48-volt phantom power, which are those 2 buttons there. The nice thing about the Personas board is you can turn phantom power on only where it's needed, so it doesn't have to run globally. Okay, a bunch of other features this mixer does. Stores presets, recall, a lot of things that we can do that we're not going to get into because, like I said, our goal is to keep everything very simple, get them up and running, not hit them with a lot of information, and then we can grow into multiple options there. I'm Joey O'Neill from Sound Systems Incorporated in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we can be reached at 843-602-5883, and we're at Liberty Southern Church in Hemingway, South Carolina. Thank you.